Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mike Lynch, Chief Product Officer of Symphony.
And I'm Spiro, the CEO of TIC42, who are proud owners of Glue42. And we're mainly talking about Glue42.
And our good colleague and collaborator, sadly, Dimiter, is out sick today. So he helped us a lot, and this is really a bit of his brainchild. Unfortunately, we'd love to do a live demo for you, but given the little few last minute changes, we're gonna have a video, and we're gonna narrate the video, and hopefully Leslie and I can tiptoe our way and tap dance our way through this. So really excited to be here and share with you some of the collaboration that Symphony and Glue42 have been doing around the desktop interoperability standard FDC3. And what we'll do is we'll walk you through desktop interoperability, the FDC3 standard, walk you through the demo where we're going to showcase Symphony, Glue42, and single track, and then we'll talk to you a little bit more about the future.
Yeah, I think as it says, we're really trying to talk about real-world use cases. So we I recognize some of you, I assume many of you know quite a bit about what FDC3 does. So there will be a little bit of an introduction for people maybe who watch this cold on YouTube or wherever it ends up. But primarily we want to talk about some real-world use cases and how existing applications and platforms kind of can support interop and where we go from there.
Yeah.
So,
should we get going?
Yeah. So, why do we have desktop interop? What's it for? Does it solve a problem? And that kind of is the problem. You have many of us work on desktops, running lots of. Can we shut the door actually, just to make it maybe a little bit quieter? Thanks. So we talk about desktop interop not because most of the applications are native existing applications running only on a Windows operating system, but because many of our users run a desktop typically with multiple screens and use lots of applications, many of which are web-based, some of which are SaaS. And we kind of get used to this idea that each of these applications are individual and separate, and there's third-party, there's in-house, there's web, and there's... People call them legacy. I hate that term. Let's call them native applications. Let's call them production applications that have decades of business knowledge and UX feedback built into them, which maybe we need to change the technology because, let's face it, it's quite hard to get junior .NET developers now. But they're good products. And we work with some Java Swing applications and bring them into this space. We've got one client who is a big VB6 application. Still use it. Support for VB6 withdrawn in 2008, but still, it kind of runs and it does their stuff. And we've kind of taught users almost too well. The first question most of your users need to answer when they phone a help desk with a problem is, which application are you using? Because everybody understands there's a dev team who delivers an application, and everything within that application is in their domain, and everything outside of that application, who cares? And so we talk to a lot of people about starting on this desktop interoperability journey, using Glue42, using FDC3, both APIs and data contexts. And the first thing you say is, what do you do? And they go, oh, well, my user uses my app to work with my data. And you'll go, that's interesting. Do they run Bloomberg? Do they run Symphony? Do they run Excel or Outlook? And they go, yeah, maybe. But we're just taught that everything happens, you can only feed back within a single application. And there are these silos, every support thing, which dev team do I need to route it to? And there's no real thought about what else your user is using your application, what other applications your user is running. And the point of desktop interop is to break down those silos and to accept that the unit of analysis, the unit of work, the unit of delivery should not really be the application, but it should be the workflow. What are you trying to do? I have a job to do. I'm going to move between applications, and this isn't that helpful. Every application running on its own very well isolated so that one bad app doesn't crash the system. That's a great idea. But the idea that the only way I communicate between applications is copy and paste or click and highlight a window, that's not a good thing. And that's what Interop is here to do. And FDC3 plays a large part in that. We'll talk about the bits that it doesn't cover. But this basic interop, what at Glue 42 we call click to sync, channels, and click to launch, which are intense, and we'll come back to what those mean a bit later. But that's the problem we're facing in all these third-party applications that we're trying to solve. And so this is what a solution within my product, Glue 42. There are many other good products out there from, well, quite good products out there from other vendors. My friends from Cosaic smiled at that, but with a fairly fixed smile. Really. So yeah, other options are available. And the key point is we're trying to bring these things together so the user can consider getting a job done with a load of applications that cooperate, including third-party and in-house applications. And FDC3 is a key part of that. And FDC3 1.2, very successful. FDC3 2.0, even more successful. But the biggest success for FDC3 2.0 is not lots of fancy new APIs. It's not lots of new features and functions. The big change is in the intents, which is where applications say, I can do this job to anybody who wants to connect to it. And this is how I'm going to describe a chat, a counterparty, an instrument, what we call FDC3 data contexts. And those are the key. And so to me, the biggest improvement, biggest change in FDC3 2.0 was the arrival of companies like Symphony and Single Track, who take part in the data context and intense discussion groups. And to me, that's where the biggest change has come, that we have real people, they're always real people, real applications talking about the data context for real use cases. Whereas in 1.2, it's kind of pretty much us container vendors, or desktop agent is the term in FDC3, talking about things like an instrument and a counterparty, but not really having real use cases. Whereas when Symphony came in, they were about how do we describe a chat, how do you initiate it? When Single Tracker, how do I log a call or contact and that kind of stuff. So for me, that's the biggest change with 2.0. And the thing I would ask all of you, see some of our clients here, is that you could contribute a huge amount by sharing your use cases, working on data context within the context of FDC3 2.0. So that would be my big ask, that the API is fine, may or may not use it. We have examples of where it's kind of handy that software vendors have used it. But the big thing that I think that all of you could contribute is more use cases and richer data context. And we'll show that a little bit as we're going through the demo. So I think probably that's what I wanted to say here. And some of this stuff is a quick refresher on FDC3. I won't go into very much detail, but it's a messaging standard. It's about APIs, not message formats, for doing two major tasks. Click to sync and click to launch. The bit here that if I had a pointer I would highlight, maybe I can reach up, is the FDC3 enables true plug-and-play interoperability and discovery on the desktop without prior bilateral agreements. That without prior bilateral agreements is another key tenet of interop. It talks about the fact that I can write and publish an application that's FDC3 aware, and then a year later, somebody maybe in a client writes an application. I have no knowledge of that application. It didn't exist even as a spec when I wrote my app, and it runs in the FDC3 environment, and it just works. There's no need for us to negotiate. So in the demo that Dimiter prepared for Mike and I, when we run the video, you'll see these interactions, and it will look great. Single Track will work really closely with Symphony. But the point is, Single Track have not written to a Symphony API. They're publishing and using FDC3 APIs, FDC3 data context, and that's the key benefit, I think, there. And they work together because that's what FDC3 is for, no prior bilateral agreement. The final bit is think fix for the desktop. So in Glue42, we're talking about straight-through workflows. We're trying to build on the straight-through processing for OMSs. And I think FDC3 is fixed, and both on the good side and the bad side. So it's fixed because it's standard and it's built cooperatively between competing companies. It's fixed because it's very easy to use it in incompatible ways, right? I don't know if those of you who work on OMS, it's very easy to have valid fixed messages that don't mean anything to the other side because fixed for a long time just focused on the message flow and didn't say these are the tags you need to describe an order in an exchange-traded equity. I mean, that's grown over the years. And it's also fixed because it's not sufficient to deliver an OMS or an EMS. Fixed is a key, really important part, and you need a load of other stuff to deliver a great EMS and OMS, and in the same way, FTC3 vital for doing interop, but there are other services that you need from your desktop agent of choice. So yeah.
I think I'll just, why Symphony is here and sort of why, we're excited about this. Our journey with FDC3 and interop is fairly new. About last year, we announced that we were going to be a supporter. We're now a maintainer of the FDC3 standard. And for us, at our core, from our product point of view, we believe in openness, flexibility, and connectivity. And that is sort of the same mantra that exists with FDC3 and desktop interoperability. We want to enable our customers to create connectivity and workflow within their desktop. And then for us, Symphony, where we're a community of 500,000 financial professionals across buy-side, sell-side, tier 1, tier 2s, being able to then create interfirm connectivity and interfirm flexibility, where you can now take, I can get to the information I need quickly, and then provide that relevant content to my customer, to my counterparty, seamlessly by connecting FDC3, the desktop interop containers, and of course Symphony as the messaging and collaboration layer. And we're going to show that to you now. So what we have is a demo where we will play, and Leslie and I will kind of play it together. It'll be a fun sort of two-headed person. We're going to play a typical sell-side research salesperson who's monitoring content, news, trade recaps on their desktop. They see something that is of interest, and they want to be able to connect with their customer and provide relevance and context as quickly as possible in using a number of tools in Symphony, such as our what we call our signals, our new enhanced tags, and then using a Glue42 sort of desktop, creating that connectivity both from Symphony to Glue42, back to Symphony, to single track the salesperson CRM, then back to Symphony and to the customer. And then in the end, actually wrapping that all back into CRM so that you can show, being able to connect all of that, all without, the only thing we'll ever type is an actual message. Everything else will be, single click here, single click there, removing that swiveling and context switching for our customers.
I'll just add one thing.
Yeah, please.
It's not particularly well scripted, so Mike is being unduly modest about Symphony because before FINOS was FINOS, it was the Symphony Software Foundation, and so some of this goes back to those days. So I don't look at it as a new commitment, I look at it as a return to...
Fair enough.
This whole so that's really great. But I think the other bit is just to pick on this idea of workflow, the flow between applications. So most of what the demo you're about to see uses what are called FDC3 intents. So this is the idea about I can invoke a method, a function, an operation in another application by using FDC3, and that's primarily what you're going to see. Yeah. And the channels, the click to sync, big part of Symphony is not part of this demo, didn't really make sense in what the flow. But the point I wanted to make was that primarily FDC3 talks about flow between applications running on a single desktop agent like Glue42 or any of the others, like FINOS. That's what it is. It's about flow between applications running in a container. Now, Chris and the team from Mosaic have been leading an initiative which they're talking about later today to allow bridging between platforms so that within the desktop you can have, say, Glue42 and you're running FINOS, those applications will work together. So that extends the scope of the flow between one desktop agent running on the and another desktop agent. But what Symphony does, and I think this is something really worth bringing out, is it extends the flow between participants. So a flow might originate from user one in a completely different firm, and arrive at user 2 through the secure Symphony channel. And then, because Symphony is committing to FDC3, it can do the whole kind of interop and loading applications that work together. And so that kind of expansion of the flow from a single desktop agent to multiple desktop agents, which Kozek will be talking about later, and then talking about extending it between users using Symphony as a secure and trusted channel, and then also they've got their workflow development kit, which is like a BPMN type thing from Rooms that can also generate those kind of flows from a server to a front end. So I think that's a real theme of 2.0. Not so much new APIs, there are a few changes, better data context, and then expanding flow between desktop agents on the same user and between users using something like Symphony.
Exactly, and one of the things that we're seeing really powerful, and we'll get into the demo in a moment, is that with Symphony we connect Symphony to Symphony, so customers, but we now have connectors to WhatsApp, WeChat, SMS for our customers who need those compliant ways of communicating with their customers on those channels. You can have a user have these these interoperability-powered workflows, and then connect to their customer on their customer's preferred channel. So really opening up in that theme of connectivity and flexibility. So let's get through it. That worked so far. Excellent. So press play. There we go. So what you're looking at is a highly simplified version of a sell-side salesperson's desktop. We have Symphony on the left. And then we have SingleTrack on the right. And before I get into Symphony, do you maybe talk a little bit about SingleTrack and what SingleTrack is all about?
SingleTrack is a CRM for the financial markets, a lot for wealth management, and it uses Salesforce in part, but it's focused on the CRM for sales traders and people like that. And so it's a major product and runs its own space, and they've committed to FDC3 to enable the kind of interop we're seeing. Yeah. We ran a similar demo a few weeks ago with Paul Dyson was here, was able to give a much better description of what SingleTrack does. Yeah, it's a CRM for
exactly. Sales. And here on the Symphony side, what you're looking at is, across the top, this user has a number of workflows. So you see their client's workflow, their external, their internal, and then what we're actually looking at is what we call our signals view on Symphony. So they've got a filter view of all of their incoming Symphony content based on the tag that they think is most important to them or us or we. And in this case, it's looking at the market color tags. So you see the hashtags of market color. So this is a sort of a general filter that the salesperson has for any kind of incoming content that might be coming into their Symphony view. And you can see we have sort of user content, and then we have bot content as well. So in this case, what we have is a trade recap that was posted automatically by an application that could have been using our WDK, which is our low-code, no-code ability to create bots and workflows visually. And you'll see here, in this case, it's a trade recap, and the user has seen it, and it's about Alder Tree Asset Management, which is an important customer, and you see this market color button here, and that market color button is an FDC3 enabled workflow. So I can now click on that market color button to understand more color around Tesla, the underlying security, and immediately open up my Glue42 desktop to be able to see that. And we'll see if we can sync up the video with the click in a second or so, or otherwise I'll pause. But being able, there you go, I clicked on it, and now immediately I'm seeing order history, a chart, market depth. I don't know, Leslie, if you want to talk more about kind of, this is a Glue42 demo version of
just
sort of
briefly, the button invoked an FDC3 intent called Start Workflow. And Start Workflow, we have an implementation of that loads a Glue42 workspace that lets them do the work they want around the market color. And here you see a load of applications in a workspace, all focused on Tesla, which was where the market color came from. And that's a key piece, right? Obviously, what you've got is potentially very trivial. We've run a few applications, focused them, but there's no searching for windows, starting, copy, paste, anything like that. It's just a natural extension of how the user wants to work. They want to move from their market color message to a workspace that lets them explore what's happening with Tesla. And now they're looking at this, they're looking at the order history, and they're going to see that they want to talk to. They want to see what messages have I had around Tesla.
Exactly.
And that's going to be taking them back into
Yep.
Symphony.
So now you'll see an intent sent back to Symphony. I'll just pause and just make sure we kind of kind of make sure that that's clear. So now we're going the other way. So from Glue42, there was an FDC3 intent for view messages with the context of Tesla. So the ticker, this is where our enhanced tags come through. And now my view on Symphony has updated where I'm specifically looking at any messages that I've received that refer to the the security Tesla. So TSLA in there, and you see some of them also have market color, but in this case it's a specific filter for Tesla with a single click.
Let me just add one thing there,
Yeah.
which is I'd like to see it from Glue42, but actually that's not the case. What you've got here is a set of in-house applications hosted in Glue42, and they've decided to make use of an intent and move back from the in-house applications to Symphony. So what we see here is Symphony, a major third-party application, single track, important third-party application, load of in-house applications, all working together, none of which were designed with each other in mind. They're just FDC3 aware. So I think that's the only point I wanted to bring out.
Very fair. And I think, and now what we're seeing is, in this case, we're using our new Symphony enhanced tags. So Symphony's had sort of cache tags and hashtags since its inception, and those are dumb isn't the right word, but maybe it is. They're just text with an object in front of it to signify this should have structure. With our new enhanced tags, and you see it on this view, we now have securities that understand the underlying identifier. So ISIN, Figgy, et cetera. So you can now create truly far more rich, far more intuitive and intelligent workflows because you'll be able to actually share an identifier across applications. So in this case, I see that Tesla is referring to this ISIN, and I have a variety of actions, and this list of actions can be customized per user. So if I have various Symphony applications or other workflows that I connect to, I can look at my internal research. I can create various workflows off of that security view, all powered potentially by FDC3. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to go view that instrument, and again, to Leslie's point, pass back an intent. In this case, you'll see an intent where there are multiple applications on that user's desk that they can then choose from based on the workflow that they want to create. So in some case, I might want to look at a piece of research, or I might want to open up my CRM. So if you want to talk about the intent resolver in this case, Leslie?
I mean, so view instrument is a predefined FTC3 intent. Any applications are free to offer it. And what happens when you're running, you see which applications are available, started or defined, that can offer view intent. And if there's more than one, then you provide the user with a selection box. And here they selected to see the instrument in the context of single track, to see which of my clients are interested in that instrument. But the important points, I think, are that if I want to go to a particular application, I don't have to show a selector. The application could say, call view intents in single track. But here it's just whatever is running at the moment that can do view instrument, let the user choose it, and that's what we're doing here. And so the user selected, Dimiter, back in his sickbed, selected to see it in single track, and here he's seeing the instrument in everything to do with Tesla.
Yeah, in this case, we're using single track to look at recent readership by customers on Tesla. They pulled up Megan, who is the same customer at Aldertree. So he can now also see, again, these single clicks to say, a trade was done. I can see what research of mine that customer has read recently. And now I'm actually going to go and share an updated set of research. That trade is now a reason for a conversation where we're seeing a single track workflow where Dimiter has selected a piece of research and is going to send it back to the end user. Again, being able to provide all this context throughout their workflow. And I'm going to pause it here. There we go. To kind of talk about sort of the next, again, we have this selector component again.
But Michael spoke about a single track workflow for sharing research with clients. And what it really is that's how, in the old ways, you might have looked at it. But obviously, the actual share research with clients involves finding the research, finding the client. That all happens within single track, and then choosing to distribute it with them, which is when single track might go, however you want to do that. And now we're using Symphony's FDC3 capabilities to move directly from single track out to Symphony to complete that workflow, which is really a user workflow which starts in Symphony and starts in single track and ends in Symphony.
Exactly. Yeah, and what we had, we've purposely chosen the selector here to highlight something new in terms of Symphony's FDC3 journey. So what we've been using here on the left-hand side is what we call the Symphony SDA, which is our electron-powered desktop application. We also now have what's called the Symphony ECP, which is our embedded collaboration platform. And what ECP is it's a modularized, embeddable version of the Symphony application that can be put in a web app in a variety of configurations, styles, and use cases. And it can be complemented with human as well as bot and other workflows that are powered, generally by Symphony. And what that allows our customers to do is, if they have a web application, imagine it's their operations platform, or it's a research platform, or one of our third-party partners, that Symphony can now be embedded in that application, minimizing that context switching. It also is now FDC3 enabled, so it can also be embedded in a desktop interop provider's container. So in this case, we're going to show it in the Glue42 container, but it could also have been embedded in another one of the desktop interop providers to, again, create that seamless connectivity and unlock more workflows in and around messaging workflows for our customers, minimizing the need to switch contexts. And when I open this up, so you'll see a situation where a user has two versions of Symphony on their desk. This isn't admittedly realistic. More likely they'd have one or the other, but just to sort of illustrate that we have that flexibility now that we didn't have before to provide sort of that contextual workflow of messaging and connecting to the end user. I paused it for too long now, so we're gonna have to, here's the tap dancing. Here we go.
If you switched on the video, you'd hear Dimiter saying something very similar.
Exactly. But, and this is something just the ECP sort of, this is something that is, again, very new for Symphony in the way that we think about how Symphony exists within our users' workflow ecosystem and the connectivity that it provides. So you can now put Symphony in the context. Throughout this, you see messaging in the context of a CRM, messaging in the context of data visualization, and all of this about workflow. So here we go. Dimiter's opened up Symphony. You now see it's sent an intent with send message. We put in a piece of text. Dimiter's going to add some more customization to that to show value to his customer, and then he's going to again add an enhanced tag. So you saw sort of the visualization of the enhanced tag once it's already been entered, but you can also manually enter those tags. So it enables both application to application workflows around structured objects, but also end user. So he's going to add a market color, hashtag, and then he'll add again hashtag Tesla. But you see in that autocomplete, he's actually selecting Tesla US, the US dollar version of the equity ticker. And today, the first version of our enhanced tags does support equities, and we'll be expanding to more asset classes throughout 2023. That's next year. I got there. So he's going to press send here, and you'll see that open up into a Symphony message. This is where he's again pausing, talking about how great enhanced tags are. Thank you, Dimiter. Anything before? So we're going into the last sort of phase of this. So he's sent it in, and that's entered it into a message. So he's now in the conversation with Megan, his customer. You have the piece of research from SingleTrack, the hashtag, as well as the enhanced tag. And in this case, we also have an intent to share the actual message body with another application, any application that is FDC3 enabled. So in this case, he sees that prior message from Megan. He says, oh, that's an important interaction that I want to capture in my CRM with a single click. So no more entering of a call note, no more rekeying. I can simply type out, click on the message overflow button there and click on, I believe it says share message.
The thing I'd make out is SingleTrack use Salesforce. So what you'll see actually is a Salesforce Lightning component come up within the context of SingleTrack, which also has a Glue42 is also Glue42 enabled, and so they're using both the SingleTrack connection and our Salesforce connector to take the whole message, the whole context, and log it into the CRM.
Yeah. You saw with that share that message, and it going to open up SingleTrack, where you see now the interaction captured in SingleTrack with just a 2 clicks, overflow and share message. And that can be shared with other applications. This is a CRM use case, but if that body of that message is, and the context of that message is useful in other applications, again, the power of FDC3 is any FDC3-enabled application can capture that. And that is the demo.
So hopefully what we've shown is a real-world use case, a load of single track, some in-house applications, which are obviously mock, and single track and Symphony working together using FTC3, showing how the FTC3 intents allow applications to work together without being pre-written. So actually, should someone be foolish enough to have a different chat system, single track will continue to work, and if a Symphony user is using some other CRM, that will also just work. And that is the power of FTC3, and that's really about why, as a cross-industry consortium, it's so powerful, and why these data contexts to be agreed between parties are so useful. I won't really go through too much about what's going on in FTC3 2.0. I covered that at the beginning, but I will mention just one piece that we added, which was there's been an application directory, kind of an app store from the very first 1.0, and that used to say that the definition of the application depending on which container. So the application directory might hold an OpenFin or a FinSomble or a Glue42 definition. So one thing we did was to create a cross-container application definition which can be used by any supporting container, which I think is important as the number of desktop agents containers grows. And that idea about, as a software vendor, the extent to which FTC3 allows you to write your code and you don't care which platform, which desktop agent is there. That's an important part that we've started doing, not sure how far we'll go, because actually, if you want to deliver the kind of integrated experience that we're talking about here, workflows, workspaces, there's a load of other features you really need to provide that kind of coherence, which outside the scope of FTC3, workflows, layouts, notifications, which may come in at 2.1, window management, search, streaming, scripting, the ability to kind of control something, another application. Those are all things which you may want as a software vendor, which are platform-specific functions outside of FTC3. So hopefully that's a little bit of what's in 2.0, a little bit of why FTC3 helps solve some real problems, and some real code running to show what it does. I don't think we have time for questions, whether there are any questions, and whether there's anybody who can even bring them through. So there's no Slido. So if you want to, we do old school. If anybody's got any questions, please shout out or stick your hand up.
Back-end pricing fee, for example.
If you're sorry?
You have a back-end pricing fee?
Yeah.
Expanded prices from the back.
So, I mean, I've got a very, 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 very strong background in market data distribution systems, right? So going back to the original PTW, won't go there. If you're going to FIXD tonight, I'll go there. And so it's not necessarily an FTC3 issue. There are FTC3 integration, interop is not designed for high performance streaming. Glue42 has a streaming function. You can use, so there's what's called a desktop channel, a named context or a colored context. You could choose to write something in the background on the desktop that pushed values there that everybody watching like marketdata.ibm might see updates.
I think my question is actually more.
So
I wanted to get FTC at these.
Great question. That's outside the idea is that there'll be some engine on the desktop that would read it and publish it. And so in the demo you just saw, Symphony was that engine. So some of those market colors were coming from a server and it was being published by Symphony, and Symphony was on the desktop participating in that FTC3 environment. Yeah. So whatever mechanism you're using to push out your updates, you'd have a client on the desktop reading it and pushing it out. So for example, we have a Bloomberg market data adapter piece, and that sits there, reads the Bloomberg API on the desktop or from the server API and publishes it out there. Yeah.
What was the magic of going cross-processing, clicking one, and assuming the two are completely?
But that's the magic of FDC3. That's, from that click sent an intent to the other application on the desktop. Yeah.
URI?
Yeah.
Oh no, so it's the FTC3 API
Yeah.
is an API. you bring in an implementation, so you bring in a Glue42 or a FINOS implementation, and it makes use of whatever's going on. So most of us are using WebSocket-based component that is sending stuff through there. But when you write to the FDC3 API, you don't actually see the underlying messages and stuff. It's just a JavaScript function call.
So you talk about message. Is it really like you're sending a message through some sort of messaging bus or something?
So you call an API function, and you pass a chunk of JSON, which is the data context. So, for example, the start workflow was a JavaScript call that says, call intent, name is start workflow, and here's the context. And then that gets packaged up and distributed depending on which agent you're using. So
some process running on the desktop.
yeah, so FDC3 is an API and not an implementation. And so what you get is what are called desktop agents, be it Glue42, be it OpenFin, be it FINOS, that implement those things. You don't care which one you're running on. You should have no knowledge, but yeah, there's something underneath that pushes messages around.
So one of the implementation could be a messaging bus.
All of the implementations have got some kind of messaging in them. There's a talk later on this afternoon from someone from Cosaic showing how you can move those messages between one desktop agent and another desktop agent. So you can ask.
Yeah. I think we're about to, I think the next group is coming in, so.